All right, so side view. Yeah, of course you have two choices. All right, you can draw the right side view, right, or the left side view. It doesn't matter. You will find what is easier for you. Let's say for me, when I start drawing, okay, kind of automatically I start with the back of the head on this side of the paper and the face part on this side of the paper. It's just easier. I think it has something to do with either you right-handed or left-handed. If you left-handed, you might find easier to draw in this way, that the face part will be here. So figure this out, right? Okay, so how to draw technically, how to start the drawing of the side view. It's totally different than, of course, the front view. So the first thing, okay, we can start with like almost a circle. So let's find that shape. We kind of keep forgetting when we draw skulls how big this part of the skull, right? How big the cranium is. That if you look at the side view, it's different than in the front view, right? In the front view, most of what we see is the face part of the skull. We see only this much of the forehead. Then the face part can be very easily covered with the hand. And what else you see? You see this. So we have to figure out the proportions, how to draw this well. And to draw this well is good to start with this kind of a round shape, okay, and leave a little bit of room here because we got to add this part which sticks out, okay, and this, right, the upper jaw and then the lower jaw. Remember, this is movable, the only thing which is movable here. Okay, so once you're done with this circle thing, the best way to start the face part is to draw a line starting from the top of the forehead right here somewhere. But don't draw that line like this vertically down, okay? Just draw this line a little bit diagonal, so like this. So we kind of cutting a little bit this part of the circle and we're going down below the circle. Then here, just keep it simple right now, and it's like we're drawing inside, we're going into inside, right? So now what do you see? It's like you can finish with like a square shape, a tilted square, right? So it's something like this. It will help us later, this line. If you close this and you see the square, right? Don't go too high. Don't make it into a rectangle, but keep it like a square. You will see this line will help you later. So now if you look again at the shape of the skull, right, you can see, right, what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so this is our circle. This is the line. Okay, this is the squarish shape. And now we can see that this is really not so perfectly square, right? It goes up. So remember, what I'm doing, when I'm drawing, I am looking at the skull. I'm not trying to draw from imagination. It's always harder to draw from imagination. I could, right? But I want to kind of show you how to draw looking so you guys can look what I'm drawing, or you can look at the pictures, right? Because you don't have that skull with you. So I'm going to right now round this a little bit. It does not have to be a perfect curve, okay? There's nothing perfectly round or straight in an outline of the skull. When we begin, yes, we can start with this perfect geometrical shape, but then later, okay, this line can become a little bit swirly, okay, to make it look more natural. Okay, so you see that more organic shape gives us more natural look of this whole form of the skull. So This is my basic right now outline, right? So what is next? Well, I have to measure a little bit to start drawing the contour line. So that's why when you put your front view drawing of the skull, which I don't have right here, but I can, put the real skull against the paper. So if you see this, you can draw some reference lines, right, from the top of the eyebrows, from the top of the ridge of the nose, from the line between the teeth, and from the cheekbone. You can draw those left reference lines to mark these important orientation points. So the first thing is we can basically divide our skull into like 3 parts. So 1, 2. So there's part 1, okay, part 2, and part 3. So there are like 3 sections. So even without having, if you didn't do your front view drawing, you still can do this and spread this out and cut this into these 3 different sections so you can start correctly placing the features of the face. So what are the features of the skull face? Well, the first thing is eye sockets. So right here with that line, right, so this is our number 1, our number 2, and number 3. As you see, they almost equal sections. So make sure if you're following what I'm doing, you're gonna do the same, right? So now, when you look at the side view of the skull, right, you don't see the round hole. You see kind of like half of this hole. So it's kind of like this, right? And it goes to kind of below a little bit the midsection between the number 2, right? So we can cut the number 2 in half, and then that's where this eye socket will end. Now, somewhere here, okay, if we start a little below that line, the end of our section number 1, that's where the bridge of the nose starts. It's kind of like a tiny little bump coming out from the skull. So that's this right here, right? Everybody can feel this part of the bone which is coming out from your forehead, right? So it's indentation. It's like a little triangular shape, and then it's coming down, opening into this big hole in the skull. That's where all the muscles and tendons and cartilage are attached and creating this shape of the nose right here. Okay, now this also is shaping up the, so now we're gonna go below the mark, the bottom of the section 2, and we're going down somewhere in the middle of the section number 3. So now we're going to shape up the upper jaw and the lower, right? So something like this. So this line will help us to establish the line dividing the upper teeth and lower, right? So right here. So we have something like this. This line is kind of a little bit like a smile, okay? So it's not perfectly straight. This line will go up a little bit. And now we're gonna add 2 lines, one below that line and one above that line, and that will give us proportions for the teeth, the upper and lower, okay? And this line will go to about here, right? And now we will have the jaw line, the lower, and that powerful hinge here, which goes under the cheekbone. Now we have this whole thing. This is the most difficult part to draw, the cheekbone, okay? Because this is this piece which is protruding out Okay. And yes, there is a certain shape and lines which we can start, but later the only thing we can really shape this up is with shading. So let's start. So our cheekbone starts basically with the edge of the eye socket, okay, and it's right here, and it start growing out of, okay, the face part right under the nose. It's kind of like this, right? And then there's like a long line, again, a little bit swirly, and that line goes all the way here, and it disappears and grows into the mass of the cranium. And then we have that it's getting the thicker and thicker, right? And then again, swirls here. What a beautiful shape. Okay, and then here, so this is this cheekbone which sticks out, right here. There's right here, there are just muscles and tendons. So the bottom part of the jaw, remember, it's movable. So it has this hinge which goes like under, and it's like this primitive fork, kind of like this, coming under this. And then here, the upper part ends. So you have to add a little line here. Okay, and then what we're gonna see, we're gonna shade this later, it's gonna be totally dark. So if you, again, look at the skull, you will see this, right? So here is our cheekbone, right here. That's the hinge. That's this fork shape right there. That's the lower. So remember, this is movable. Now, the interesting part, what to do with this? Should we keep it around like this? Well, in reality, if you think about this, it's really more like this. Okay, and there's an opening here, which we don't see much. It's going to be really dark here. So we don't see this, but it is indented right here. And this part of the skull is really bumpy, kind of starting like this and adding some texturing lines, contour lines here, okay, can help to visualize this. So that's our outline. As I'm going to show you the process of shading, it's going to be all shaded and blended. So to me, when I draw skulls, I try to avoid really separating the teeth and drawing each of them with such a detail, unless I have a reason for it. So right now, I'm going to start shading. So I'm going to start with darkest spots. So what are the darkest spots? Of course, right here. And then here, around that cheekbone. So that's my first basic shading. And some of you might say, well, that's enough, but I like to go deeper. So I'm going to go even darker. So I'm going to push my crayon a little bit more, and I'm going to do a little bit more detail. So focus on some spots. I'm going to add some lines. Remember, I was telling you about, certain parts like lower jaw and upper jaw is a little bit more texture. That the texture surface is developed because a lot of muscles are attached to the surface. Okay, so now I'm going deeper into these really dark parts here. And I keep having fun with this. Going over my outline, making this a little darker here. I really like to smudge with my fingers. I feel like I'm really drawing, I'm really shaping this up with fingertips. I kind of touching the real thing and modeling. I feel like sculpting this out and making this look 3D. So if you look at this and my drawing, right, even though the teeth here on this picture are pretty detailed, if you like it, if you want to do this way, I mean, we can count the teeth here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so go for it. That's fine. To me, what is more important is the overall view of the shaded surface of the skull and that 3D effect. So you could see, you know, the general shapes, which I showed you at the beginning, and then how you can shape it up with shading. So at this point, if you guys were following me and you're drawing what I am drawing, you should have it almost there. So I'm gonna shade a little bit around, and that way the white, whatever is white on the skull, will stand out a little bit better. So that's it. That's what I would like you to do today, right? The side view with fully developed shading.